The first group of people that I have chosen to plan an exercise referral or prescription for is older people. I have chosen 3 different areas of fitness which is important for them to focus on to maintain their fitness and health. From here, I then planned in more detail the type of exercise that they would do to cover the components of fitness, and I added the FIT principles to it. The first component of fitness which is important for older people to maintain is their strength. The most important type of strength is muscular strength, as this component allows older people to still be able to lift and carry things in everyday life, such as shopping. Furthermore, having good strength also helps to support their skeletal system, which becomes more fragile with age. Having strong muscles can help prevent injuries because the body's structural system is being supported. As you age, you gradually lose the amount of muscle mass that you have. Therefore, I have chosen for the older clients to work on the strength component through swimming. Swimming is a low-impact exercise, which means it lowers the risk to their bones becoming injured and damaged. For example, there is less risk of breakages. Furthermore, swimming is a low weight-bearing activity because the water supports you when you move, which will help older people to increase their muscle mass and strength, but with less pain and discomfort. Swimming is an important form of exercise for older people to be involved in because it is a form of resistance training. The resistance occurs when the water is pushed to allow the person to move through it. As water has a much higher resistance than air, muscle can be built a lot faster because there is no impact on the joints. This is a perfect form of exercise for older people who are trying to improve their strength. When movement through water occurs, lots of different muscle groups are being used, which helps to increase the overall strength of the person swimming. This is important for older people because if they have muscle imbalance, it may cause them to actually be weaker because their body is not composed the same. This means that when moving they may be more likely to lose their balance if they seem to favour one side more than the other. Therefore, by using a range of muscle groups, the risk of this happening is reduced. For an older person, I recommend that the sessions are kept short to reduce high levels of fatigue. At the start of the sessions, I stress that they should aim for 20 minutes of swimming, not counting the lengths that they do. This will decrease the pressure that they feel to reach a certain goal, such as the amount of lengths, which will make this form of exercise more enjoyable and safer for the clients. Furthermore, as you can see on the screen, I have stated that the lengths within the 20 minutes should be done slowly, which means that they should be working at low intensity. This is because older people's respiratory and cardiovascular systems will not be as fit as someone who is young, which is why it's important for them to pace themselves whilst exercising. When planning the time for the sessions, I had to consider the types of contraindications which could affect an older person's ability to perform. For example, I had to consider how older people may have poor lung health. This would prevent them from being able to exercise for long periods of time because it would put their body under more strain and possible stress. Therefore, I have chosen to prescribe shorter sessions for the clients, but they should do this more than once a week. Doing this exercise twice a week will be enough for them to build up their strength. Over time, if they feel stronger and more capable, then the time and frequency of their exercise can be increased. This should be done when the muscles are stronger, as I wouldn't want to limit their potential of exercising by pushing them too hard at the start. If at any point the older client suffers from any pain or discomfort, they should alert the professional around them and seek advice on what to do. They should not partake if they have had previous history of severe heart or lung conditions, as this puts them at high risk of having a relapse. This is because swimming is aerobic, so the heart and the lungs are put under more strain as more blood and oxygen is needed in the body. However, if they have had conditions before and these were not recent, the activity can be modified and worked around for them so that they can still be able to take part. Other contraindications such as soreness and weakness and high blood pressure should not stop the participants from taking part in this activity. However, they should be medically cleared and have supervision throughout the physical activity. For a client in the older generation, it is really important that they are mobile and their body is able to move freely with as little discomfort as possible. Mobility is linked to the ability for joints to move and work freely. According to NestleHealthScience.com, having healthy and strong muscles, bones and joints will allow you to move and complete everyday tasks. As individuals age, the muscles, bones and joints quickly undergo changes which can affect things such as your posture and your gait when moving. The most common difference that the older people see in how they move occurs when they are actually walking. This is why I am prescribing this exercise to them to improve their mobility with. As it usually identifies any issues quite clearly, it's easy to correct the issues faster and more efficiently because you can work out the problem then at the time. This will help them to keep focused and more motivated. As aging affects your muscle strength and your bone density, your joints can quickly become stiff and brittle, which increases the risk of them developing conditions such as osteoporosis, and they are more likely to break bones if they fall and trip. NestleHealthScience.com suggests that people in the older population lose up to 6 to 7 degrees of motion in their hips and 5 to 6 degrees of abduction in their shoulder per decade, which is why it's so important to focus on maintaining mobility so they can still go about doing their daily chores. I have chosen to help the older population improve their mobility by prescribing them a plan through the activity of walking. I have chosen for this to be a 30-minute session which should be repeated 4 times per week. I have chosen for this activity to be repeated frequently throughout the week because the only way to improve your mobility is to do repeated exercise. If the client did some walking one day, then went home and sat the next day because their legs were sore, they would lose all progress they had made the day before and their joints would become very stiff and it would be more painful to continue. Therefore, by doing this activity regularly, I am reducing the risk of this occurring. I have set the time of the walking to be quite short because I am suggesting the exercise to be done at moderate intensity, which means that they should be walking with pace to help achieve an increase in mobility. If they find the intensity of the walk too difficult, then I will decrease the level and increase the time that they are exercising for. Over time, the mobility of their joints should improve, which will help their overall fitness and their well-being. Although walking is a low-impact exercise option which is perfect for the older generation because of their lack of ability to partake in strenuous physical activity, as someone who is prescribing exercise for them to do, it's important to be aware of the contraindications to them taking part in the exercise. As there are 2 different types of contraindications, there are different levels of conditions which should be prioritised. If the older client suffers from heart or lung conditions which have occurred recently, such as a heart attack or common respiratory disease, they should not take part in any activities. This puts a lot of extra strain on their body. Because walking is a form of aerobic activity, more oxygen and larger volumes of blood is required at the site of the working muscles. This means that the respiratory system and the cardiovascular system both have to work harder to achieve this, which puts the older generation at a higher risk of suffering from a relapse of their condition again. However, if they suffer from contraindications which you can still exercise with, but at some risk, the activity will only need to be modified, and they will need supervision throughout. For example, if an individual suffers from a condition such as the following of high blood pressure, asthma or osteoporosis, then the exercise will need to be modified to try and prevent any of the symptoms of the conditions from flaring up and becoming dangerous. Exercise will help your blood pressure because it helps to regulate cholesterol levels so that blood can flow through vessel walls easily, and walking will also help someone with osteoporosis because impact activities help to build bone density back up. However, when someone has a condition such as asthma, which cannot be helped or resolved through exercise, it is important to be aware of the risks. For example, if they are suffering from a shortness of breath spell or they feel dizzy, then they should stop exercise because the benefits of exercising don't outweigh the risk to the individual at that time. If they have had conditions like this, the activity should always be amended to be less intense so the risk is lowered as much as possible, such as not performing any movements above head height as this can restrict airflow. Another component of fitness which is important for older people to maintain is their flexibility. This fitness component is very important to maintain and improve because if you have good levels of flexibility, then you're going to be able to keep your balance better. This is beneficial for everyday tasks where you may be walking, lifting and carrying things. The most important parts of the body to have good flexibility in is your arms, your legs and your back. This is because these are your prime movers and your back muscles support your spinal cord, which helps you to balance and provide support. Because of this, I've chosen yoga as the exercise to help people stay flexible, because you can do a range of activities and exercises within it to stretch all different areas of the body. As you age, your flexibility quickly decreases, which is why it's so important to do regular exercises throughout the week to maintain the levels that you have. I have planned a program which is designed to help the older generation keep their flexibility levels up, and if they have low ability, help improve this to a high level. I plan to help the older generation clients by asking them to participate in yoga classes 2 times a week. As yoga is stretching based, this will give the client's muscles enough time to recover after each session. However, they are still going regularly enough to see differences quite quickly. Within each session, they will be doing targeted movements such as the cow stretch, side angle, and cat stretch, which is shown on the screen. I've advised that the older clients should begin sessions in chair yoga, where they'll be doing all movements sat down. This is mainly to help support them, but also because these types of stretches are less intense and easier to do when you aren't very mobile. As these yoga sessions are designed to stretch your muscles, the activity is classed as being low impact. This means that the session can run for longer, as it won't be as tiring. Therefore, I have chosen to make these sessions 45 minutes long, as this gives enough time within 2 sessions per week to see progress. However, it's not too long of a session where the older clients will be experiencing boredom or discomfort from the movements. There are contraindications to doing exercise such as yoga when you are in the older generation, although it is a low-impact type of activity which can help conditions such as osteoporosis because it helps to build bone but with little pain and discomfort. Exercises can still be modified to suit each client so that they can still partake. As yoga is focused a lot on your breathing patterns, it is not advised for anyone with serious lung conditions or heart conditions, for example, for someone who has recently had a stroke, to take part in this type of exercise. However, if you have conditions such as high blood pressure and arthritis, then you can take part in this type of activity, as these are only relative contraindications. However, there is still a risk being older, so it's important to modify exercises and always work with supervision, such as going to a group class so people are around you if you need any help. As you age, you lose your flexibility, and when you have conditions such as arthritis, this can be made a lot worse. However, this condition can be very painful, which is why it's important to modify exercises so that not as much pressure and strain is put on that area. For example, when doing the movements in the yoga session, the stretch should be held until the point of discomfort is reached and no longer otherwise, as this could cause more damage compared to the benefit of actually exercising. Another common contraindication for the older generation is high blood pressure. This is where extra strain is put on the blood vessels in the body, so it increases more strain on the heart. If someone in the yoga class has high blood pressure, they should modify their exercises so that they either sat down or stood up the whole time, as the fluctuations in movement can cause an increase in the pressure, which will put the older person at a much higher risk.